If the attacker gets hold of the non-human identities, you really don't have to go through the hassle of bypassing MFA because it's out there with extra privileges that you don't even know about.
Yeah. Explain the non-human identities. What are we talking about?
We're talking about API tokens, service accounts, AI agents that we are creating. Everyone integrates one application with another, all right? So integrated with Slack, integrated with Salesforce. So every integration creates API tokens. These put together we call non-human identities. For every one human identity, we are talking 82 non-human identities that are associated with this one human identity. An easy target for the attackers out there, low-hanging fruit.
The Cyber News Group podcast, making cybersecurity real, relevant, and accessible to all. Do you get tired or frustrated about how many times you have to log in to devices, whether it's at work or at home, our online accounts, even our shopping accounts, have to log into Netflix as well. You have to have so many passwords. As soon as you create them, we forget them. Now, this everyday frustration is at the heart of one of the biggest challenges in cybersecurity, and that is identity security. Because you know what? Most of the compromises don't just happen when somebody dramatically breaks in through your system. It can also happen when somebody just logs in with legitimate access. But don't worry, because today's guest helps organizations tackle exactly that problem. He helps turn identity security from a compliance checkbox to a real line of defense. So, today I want to welcome Ray Manash from ManageEngine. Hi, Ray. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Purvi. That was a sweet introduction. Thank you.
Well, let's do a little bit more of an introduction about you. So tell us, Ray, what are you doing currently in your role with ManageEngine?
So right now, I head the business development and the customer success teams for UK and Ireland regions. But I started my career as the product consultant for identity and access management suite of products that we are building within ManageEngine. So I pivoted my role midway of my career. I thought I'll do something more than being a product consultant. I love interacting with prospects, customers, understanding their problems. And I thought probably I'll do let's say a physical reach out to all of the customers, be on ground, talk to them, understand the challenges and see if I can help them in some way.
So you've got real customer insight there.
Heading the customer success team, definitely, because I'm very mindful about the product adoption, the utilization, the challenges and things like that. And definitely.
Excellent. So let's bring some context to identity security. When people hear identity security, they could probably switch off because they think, oh, that's too technical, I'm not technical. But for our non-technical listeners, have you got an analogy that explains identity security? What is it really?
All right, so I use this a lot. So imagine your organization is a hotel, all right? You have walls and the CCTV cameras, which are like your firewalls. And then you have your key cards that has access to the rooms within the hotels. And the rooms are the endpoints and the key cards are the identities. All right. So once you have valid credentials, let's say a valid key card, you can just get in through the front door. You can access the lobby. You can use the lifts, the gym, the garden, and pretty much everything. So identity security is all about you keeping tabs on how many keys you have handed out and which keys open which doors and what happens when these keys open the doors, what happens after the doors are opened.
So if you lose track of those key cards and how many are out there and who's got them, basically
you're lost,
Yeah.
right? So you really don't have an idea about how many keys that you have given out and who really possesses those keys as we speak.
So you lose the visibility of all your
Exactly.
identities. In organizations, we probably think of, identities being equated to humans because we're talking about human employees there. But there's more than that, right? Identities can be more than human.
Definitely. Definitely. I'll tell you why. Because I really want to talk to you about the good old days where 500 employees in an organization just means 500 identities.
Yeah.
All right, and then COVID hit,
Yeah.
and then the rapid SaaS adoption and the proliferation of identities and introduction of the work from home model
Right.
really grew the human identities, the workforce identities beyond leaps and bounds. But now we are at a point where the non-human identities are growing at a much faster rate than the human identities, because for every one human identity, we are talking 82 non-human identities that are associated with this one human identity.
Explain the non-human identities. What are we talking about
We are
there?
talking about API tokens, service accounts, AI agents that we are creating, and microservices that are being created. So these put together we call non-human identities, and they are way more than what we think we have in our environment. Usually, whenever I talk to any director of technologies or IT managers, I ask how many non-human identities they have in their environment. And let's say they say 5,000. I usually say, you know what, you should probably add another zero at the end, or even a couple of
Wow.
zeros. That much non-human identities exist within our environment.
And you know what? The concerning thing is not just that many non-human identities exist, it's the fact that the companies don't even know about it.
Exactly.
And why
Exactly.
is that? Why is there no way of sort of keeping track of this?
Because like workforce identities, non-human identities can really lurk in the dark.
Right,
So
right.
they're really not out there. I'll just give you an example. Every developer creates microservices, and he has to or she has to create credentials to get that microservice up and running. And whenever a CI/CD pipeline is again created, it runs on top of a service account that no one knows exists. All right, and then let's say everyone integrates one application with another. All right, so integrated with Slack, integrated with Salesforce. So every integration creates API tokens. So these non-human identities are left ungoverned. All right, so it usually, we just sweep it under the rug. No one really notices or keeps track of all these non-human identities that are created for convenience and automation.
Okay, so why are you concerned about the non-human identities in your line of work? What worries you the most about that?
Okay, so in today's world, it's just not the good guys who are getting sophisticated technologically. It's also the bad guys who are upping their game.
Right.
So a couple of years ago, or let's say 5 years ago, the low-hanging fruit when it comes to getting inside an environment would be the workforce identities. Right. So
Right.
now, the workforce identities are all safeguarded with multi-factor authentication. So
Yeah.
even if an attacker wants to use the compromised credentials of a workforce identity, it's a tedious process for the attacker. But if the attacker gets hold of the non-human identities, you really don't have to go through the hassle of bypassing MFA, because it's out there with extra privileges that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
All right, so that's an easy target for the attackers out there, low-hanging fruit. So that's exactly why we need to be very concerned about how many non-human identities we have and we know about in our environment.
Especially the amount of numbers that you're talking
Exactly,
about here.
it's staggering.
Huge.
Actually. Yes,
Huge amount.
Yes.
Right.
And now a message from our sponsor, ManageEngine.
Welcome to AD Manager Plus. Today, let's explore an essential feature that can help keep your organization secure. AD Manager Plus Identity Risk Assessment Report. The Identity Risk Assessment Report in AD Manager Plus, which follows NIST SP 830 guidelines, helps you identify potential threats within your organization. This report evaluates your Active Directory and Microsoft 365 environments and categorizes risks based on key indicators like stale accounts, excessive privileges, or accounts with unchanged passwords. It also calculates your organization's overall risk score. With these insights, you can prioritize security actions and proactively address potential threats before they become serious issues. With actionable insights, you can take immediate steps to mitigate risks directly from the AD Manager Plus console, whether it's disabling unused accounts or tightening permissions. Regularly monitor for identity-based risks and strengthen your security posture with the Identity Risk Assessment Report. Discover the full power of AD Manager Plus today. Visit our website for more details.
Thank you to ManageEngine for sponsoring this episode. For more information, visit admanagerplus.com.
So we've talked about non-human identities. Let's bring it back to the human identities. I mean, often we would imagine these are just people who are working in our organizations. We trust them. They know the protocol when it comes to logging in and using secure passwords. But it's not always the case, right? Because we could have what we call in our cyber world an insider.
Definitely.
So tell me more about the insider threat.
That's the dangerous bit because we call them insiders because they're already inside. All right. So that's a problem. So while we are worrying about firewalls being broken or networks getting hacked, we have someone within our organization who has valid access, who is very normal, who can really pretend like a normal employee. The MFAs are good. They have the HR's approval, and they are within the system, and they can start exfiltrating the data and put it out there for sale. When we are focused on these perimeter boundaries, a 10 or 50 quid valid credentials from a dark web can really wreak havoc within your environment.
So you can just have this threat embedded right in your organization without even
deep within your environment. Yes.
And that can cause a lot of harm, a lot of impact when it comes to cyber incidents, stealing data, stealing IP, right? Do you have any anonymized examples of an insider threat and the impact it's had on an organization?
From top of my head, I can think of something. Let's say a mid-level employee of a fintech company who has access to sensitive financial data created an agentic AI, an AI agent to make his life easy, for the reporting purpose. Right. And
so this is a genuine, employee of the organization.
Exactly.
But he's using agentic AI for his own personal, to make his work efficient.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, just to get the daily reports going and, sending it to him as an email, he built an AI agent just to make his work life a bit easy. But he really did not have to go through any approvals before creating the AI agents, which is really startling because it's unaccounted for.
Yes.
You need to really, no one is going to drop an email to the CISO or the CIO saying that, today I'm going to create 3 highly privileged robotic agents that just to get my job done. All right. So we have right now, we have no ways, or we have only less ways of monitoring, governing these identities, the non-human identities that we are creating. All right. So the agent that he created is there. I mean, I'm talking about an incident 5 years ago, and I spoke to his colleague like a week or a couple of weeks ago. The service account, the AI agent that he still built, is around doing the job under the same service account, but no one knows about it, and it has database access.
So how can that be dangerous then? Like if it's meant intentionally for efficiency, how can it turn?
It can turn in bad ways because if an attacker knows about this super bloated AI agent that has been built and doing a job, then that's easy access for him into our IT infrastructure and exfiltrating sensitive data. Because it's ungoverned and very few people know that it exists and they really don't care about it. So it's again, a very easy target for a perpetrator.
So this kind of shows that as an employee, everybody has that responsibility to be careful with this as well, because they can unintentionally become an insider threat. They're using, AI, new technology for their own benefit, for their own efficiency. But they can unintentionally then lead to a cyber incident.
Definitely.
Right? So,
because, the first thing I would do, I mean, not me, any mid-level or low-level employees would do, but to make their lives easy, is to plug the AI agents they have built into LLMs and the other, AI, sorry, I'll start again.
No worries.
So any mid-level employees who builds an AI agent, the first thing he or she would do is plug that AI agent into LLMs or probably integrate sensitive databases into LLMs just to make their lives easy, all right? So to get the right amount of insights or to curate plans according to the business goals, all right? So that is, in a way, very malicious to the work that we are doing as cyber experts.
Yeah, absolutely. And anybody can do that.
Of
right?
course, yes.
So the threat is real. And we can't talk about cybersecurity and not talk about AI. We've talked about agentic AI. But how do you think the way AI is progressing, how do you think that's going to impact this threat, of identity security, threat to identity security? How is AI going to impact it in future, do you think?
So when people tell me that the introduction of AI is a bane to cybersecurity, I tell them, see, it's not going to reinvent any new sense.
Right.
It's just going to supercharge the old ones.
Right, okay.
Right. So by that, what I mean is we already have enough attacks going out in the real world. All right. So the breaches, so on and so forth. So these AI agents or the artificial intelligence for that matter, it's just going to accelerate the speed of the attacks that are happening.
Right.
All right. So a recent statistic says the incident timeline from compromise to data exfiltration has now come down within 72 hours. Even some data says that it has come down below 48 hours, which means that the AI is actually doing a very efficient job.
Yeah.
A human being can exfiltrate, let's say, 5,000 files a day. Again, I'm
Right.
again shooting for the
Right.
stars.
Yeah.
An AI agent can really exfiltrate data at machine speed.
Right.
All right, so we're talking 50,000 or more records. It can do the mundane job without getting bored.
Yeah.
And it really does not get tired.
Right.
All right. So it's always there,
It
you know,
is.
clockwork, doing the job. It
So
can be good,
yeah.
it can be bad. So it really does
can
not
go
really care about the...
exponential, basically.
Yes, it
Yeah.
really does not care about the ethics.
Yeah.
It just keeps doing the
Yeah.
bad job if that's what it's programmed to do.
So how can organizations maintain this balance between, trusting their employees? Some of these examples are unintentional. So keeping that trust, but also having visibility of who's on what and what they're doing. How can organizations navigate through this complexity?
The first step towards dealing with the problem is to acknowledge there is a problem in the first place,
Right.
right? So
Okay.
I think they need to have better visibility of the identities within their environment. It can be human identities or it can be non-human identities. So if you're in the dark, if you have no clue about what you're fighting against, I really don't think you would have any measures to prevent yourself from what you're dealing with.
And what's that first step
The
organizations
first step is to
can
get
take?
that visibility of the number of identities you have within your environment.
Yeah.
All right. So that's step one.
Yeah.
So once you have the visibility, so the ideal mature organization with identity security should look like this. You know what? I have X number of human identities.
Right.
I have Y number of non-human identities.
Right.
And I have 50 risky identities that I have to deal with. And I have 300 dormant service accounts that I have to put to rest. So all you have to do is pull a dashboard and that should give you all these comprehensive information for you to make informed decisions. So this is how a mature identity security organization should look like.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of
And it can be
work.
overwhelming for organizations to keep track of all that.
Mm-hmm.
So what have we got that can sort of help organizations with that, keeping that visibility? And you could think about the number of people that they're onboarding into the organization, offboarding. What does good visibility look like and how can they get that?
So when we talk about identity security, there are 4 important bits to it. All right. So 4 important technologies that very few people talk about. So the first one would be ISPM, Identity Security Posture Management. So that is your visibility layer. You bring ISPM into the picture, you run a scan, and you discover how many identities you have, how many dormant service accounts you have got, and how many API tokens or how many AI agents are lurking within your environment. So that is the first step. Then comes introducing governance policies for those identified human and non-human identities. So whenever a non-human identity is being created, someone really has to take the accountability when something goes south.
Yeah.
All right. So someone really has to document somewhere who's the owner of this non-human identity, what's the purpose of this non-human identity when it was created, and what's the access scope of this non-human identity that is being created. All right, so and it has to be documented somewhere, and then you have to enforce things like multi-factor authentication, or say credential rotation for every 30 days. So you introduce those policies to keep you out of trouble. So I think these are the two important steps that we need to initially concentrate on. And then, comes the IGA, identity governance and administration. So you spoke about the onboarding and the offboarding process. Again, 30 to 40% of the organizations still do onboarding and offboarding manually using spreadsheets.
Yeah.
All right. So you need to have HR-driven automation or payroll-driven automation. So every organization would have a single source of truth.
Yeah.
It can be their ERP system, their HRMS system, or the payroll system. You have to hook in your IGA system into the single source of truth, so that whenever you put a record into the front-facing application, the automation automatically triggers, and based on the policies that you have set up within the IGA, the provisioning and the deprovisioning automatically happens based on the conditions. So
there's a clear framework here that
course,
organizations can apply.
Yes.
And they definitely need, their leaders' mindset, their seniors' sort of buy-in. So, for those leaders that are listening, what's that mindset shift that they would need for, 2026 and beyond to be able to tackle this problem? What's the one thing?
Okay, so for the leaders, they should they should really stop treating identity security as an IT problem. And I think it's time they should consider identity security as a risk problem. It is a people problem. It's a process problem. And definitely, yes, it is a technology problem. This definitely should be discussed in the boardrooms instead of just, pushing it to the IT team. And then I frequently hear about solution bloating, which means that to tackle a problem, they bring in multiple tools without having or defining concrete outcomes from the tools that they are buying. They just think buying tools will put them out of trouble, but it invites more trouble. All right, so those are the 2 points I would personally say the leaders should really consider.
Excellent. And once again, to summarize that, cybersecurity is not just an IT issue.
Definitely not.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Ray. That has been brilliant. Thank you for actually helping us translate a very complicated subject. Not only what the problem is, but you've also given us a really good solution to this, and many organizations will actually should embrace that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Purvi. Thank you for having me.
So today's conversation is a reminder that it's not just about keeping the attackers out, but also knowing who you're letting in. And those identities can be human, but they can also be machine. In the age of AI, we need to be very careful of who is on our premises, what they're doing, and have that full visibility and leadership support. I'm sure you've enjoyed this session. For more, keep watching the next episode and keep liking and subscribing. Thank you very much.